There is a form of deception that rarely gets noticed, yet it governs the emotional energy in countless relationships, families, and institutions. It is not loud, nor is it obvious. It wears the mask of innocence, the tone of hurt, and the language of injustice. This is the psychology of people who pretend to be the victim, not those who are genuinely harmed, but those who fabricate, exaggerate, or distort their suffering to gain leverage, sympathy, or superiority. In this deep philosophical and psychological exploration, we are going to uncover the truth behind this behavior. And the truth is, those who chronically portray themselves as victims are not powerless. They are not broken. They are not always honest. They are often powerful manipulators, cloaked in pain, who have learned that playing the victim is the most effective way to avoid accountability and control the emotional narrative. This is not a simple topic. It is not enough to say someone is lying or seeking attention. That would be shallow. What we are about to explore goes deeper than behavior. It reaches into identity, into learned emotional patterns, into existential fears that shape how people relate to the world. When someone pretends to be the victim, they are not just telling a lie, they are avoiding a deeper truth. That truth is often about themselves, about their role in the pain they're experiencing, about their refusal to confront their own flaws, limitations, or destructive patterns. And so, they construct a story where they are always innocent, always hurt, never responsible. This becomes their shield, their justification, their protection from shame. But in doing so, they sacrifice something far more valuable than their pride. They sacrifice the opportunity to grow. Let's be clear, there are real victims in this world. People who are abused, oppressed, silenced, and harmed in ways that deserve justice, empathy, and healing. But what we are discussing here is not that. We are talking about those who use the language of victimhood as a weapon, not a wound. Those who manipulate the story of pain to avoid facing their own darkness. Those who cry out not because they are broken, but because they have learned that weakness gives them power. And here lies the paradox. In pretending to be powerless, they actually gain control. They silence others by demanding sympathy. They avoid criticism by claiming trauma. They dominate conversations by constantly redirecting attention to their suffering. And they often do it so skillfully that even the people closest to them can't see it happening. We must ask ourselves, what kind of person needs to pretend they are the victim? What is the inner world of someone who cannot accept fault, who cannot apologize, who cannot see themselves as a contributor to conflict? Often, what we find is a deep, unresolved fear of inadequacy. These individuals may have grown up in environments where love was conditional, where being wrong led to punishment, where mistakes meant shame. So they developed a coping mechanism: never be wrong, always be hurt, always be the one who suffered more. This strategy, while unconscious in many cases, becomes a way of navigating the world. It's not about truth. It's about emotional survival. But in adulthood, this survival strategy becomes toxic. It poisons relationships. It breeds resentment. It creates cycles where no real healing can ever occur, because one person is always positioning themselves above reproach.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre once said, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." But what happens when someone refuses to make anything of themselves beyond their suffering? When their identity becomes so entangled with being hurt that they cannot imagine themselves as anything else. What happens is tragic. They lose their capacity for transformation. They lose their ability to take responsibility, to change, to improve. They become frozen in a narrative where they are always the one who was wronged, and anyone who challenges that narrative becomes an enemy. This is why people who pretend to be victims often push away those who get too close. Because true intimacy requires vulnerability. It requires truth. And if your entire identity is built on a false version of events, then truth is the ultimate threat. It's important to understand the psychological reward system that reinforces this behavior. When someone pretends to be the victim, they often receive immediate emotional benefits: attention, sympathy, support, protection from criticism. These benefits can be addictive. Over time, the person learns that pain, real or imagined, is a more powerful currency than honesty. They realize that if they are always the one who is hurt, they never have to be the one who is wrong. And so they become emotionally dependent on suffering, not because they enjoy pain, but because they enjoy the power it gives them. This is not a conscious choice most of the time. It's a deeply embedded defense mechanism. But make no mistake, it is a form of manipulation. And manipulation, no matter how subtle, always leaves damage in its wake. Many of us have encountered this dynamic in our personal lives. Perhaps in a friend who always finds a way to be the victim in every conflict, no matter what happened. Or in a partner who turns every disagreement into an emotional breakdown, making you feel guilty for simply expressing your needs. Or in a family member who rewrites history to paint themselves as the one who was always mistreated, while conveniently forgetting their own hurtful actions. These people are not necessarily evil. They are often scared. They are often emotionally immature. But their behavior is still harmful. And if we don't recognize it, we risk becoming part of the lie. We risk enabling the story. We risk losing our own sense of truth. So what can we do when we find ourselves in the presence of someone who constantly plays the victim? The first step is awareness. You must see the pattern clearly. You must be willing to question the narrative, even if it's painful, even if it means losing their approval. Because people who habitually pretend to be victims often surround themselves with enablers, people who validate their stories, because it's easier than confronting the truth. But if you care about truth, if you care about growth, you cannot participate in that delusion. You must be the person who sees through the performance, not with cruelty, not with judgment, but with clarity. The second step is boundaries. People who weaponize victimhood will often try to emotionally entangle you. They will guilt you, shame you, or emotionally blackmail you into taking responsibility for their feelings. You must resist this. You must remember that you are not responsible for someone else's refusal to grow. You are not responsible for their pain if you have not caused it. And even if you have contributed to it, you still have the right to speak your truth. Boundaries are not walls. They are clarity. They are the line between compassion and codependency. And the third step is to reflect on your own tendencies. The most difficult part of this journey is looking inward. Have you ever played the victim to avoid responsibility? Have you used your pain to win an argument or manipulate a situation? Have you ever told a story where you were the hero and the victim at the same time, and the other person was the villain? We all have. That is part of being human. But the goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. The goal is honesty. And honesty begins with the willingness to confront your own role in the stories you tell. Socrates said, "Know thyself." This is not a casual suggestion. It is a radical call to self-awareness. Because when you know yourself, you no longer need to hide behind false identities. You no longer need to be the victim to feel worthy. You no longer need to manipulate others into giving you what you refuse to give yourself: love, respect, and truth. The journey out of false victimhood is not easy. It requires courage. It requires humility. It requires the willingness to face your own shadow. But it is the only path to true freedom. Because as long as you are pretending to be the victim, you are not free. You are trapped in a narrative that keeps you small, reactive, and disconnected from your own power. So the question becomes, are you willing to give up the story of being wronged in order to become someone who is responsible? Are you ready to stop seeking sympathy and start seeking truth? Are you willing to let go of the identity that has protected you in order to become the person you were always meant to be? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. Because playing the victim may win temporary comfort, but it will never lead to lasting peace. To truly understand why people cling to the victim role, we must go deeper into the unconscious mind, into the philosophical roots of identity, and into the emotional shortcuts we take to avoid existential responsibility. The person who constantly pretends to be the victim is not merely acting out of malice or manipulation. In many cases, they are acting out of fear. Fear of being insignificant, fear of being exposed, fear of being seen without their pain as armor. Because for them, pain gives shape to their existence. Without it, they do not know who they are. And so, they cling to suffering not for healing, but for survival. This is where the philosophy of Viktor Frankl becomes relevant. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. But the person who pretends to be the victim resists this challenge. They are not interested in changing themselves. That would mean facing their own role in their suffering. That would mean surrendering the comfort of external blame. And so, they remain emotionally static. They tell the same story over and over. They rehearse the same injustices, the same betrayals, the same reasons why nothing is ever their fault. This is not growth. This is stagnation. And stagnation over time turns pain into identity. The victim role also allows people to abdicate moral responsibility. If you are always the one who's been hurt, then you never have to apologize. You never have to make amends. You never have to sit in the discomfort of realizing you've hurt someone else. And this is where false victimhood becomes dangerous. It doesn't just distort personal relationships, it distorts moral clarity. It creates a world where the loudest pain wins, where emotional volume replaces truth, where whoever cries first or cries louder becomes right by default. And in that world, justice dies. Because justice requires truth. Not just your truth, but the whole truth. And sometimes the whole truth includes your own flaws, your own failures, your own part in the drama you claim to be above. But let's pivot now to something even more unsettling. What if the person pretending to be the victim isn't just fooling others? What if they are fooling themselves? This is the most insidious form of self-deception. When someone convinces themselves so thoroughly of their own innocence that they actually believe their rewritten version of events, they aren't just lying to others, they are lying to themselves. And the mind, when it doesn't want to face reality, is capable of incredible contortions. It will erase memories. It will reinterpret intentions. It will create villains where there were misunderstandings. It will turn accidents into betrayals. Because the ego does not want to be at fault. The ego wants to be righteous. And if preserving that righteousness requires rewriting history, so be it. This is where the teachings of Carl Jung become essential. Jung warned us of the shadow, the hidden unconscious parts of ourselves that we refuse to acknowledge. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The person who constantly pretends to be the victim is often under the control of their shadow. They do not see how their own unresolved wounds, insecurities, and unmet needs are shaping the world around them. They believe they are reacting to life, when in fact, they are projecting onto it. They believe they are innocent, when in fact, they are avoiding the parts of themselves they cannot bear to see. And in doing so, they create a psychological prison. They become trapped in a story that no longer serves them, but they don't know how to escape it. Now ask yourself, what is the cost of staying in that prison? What is the cost of living in a world where you are always the victim? The answer is simple: your freedom. If you are always the victim, you are never the creator of your life. You are never the author of your story. You are merely reacting, surviving, defending. You are never choosing. You are never changing. And you are never truly alive. Because aliveness requires risk. It requires ownership. It requires the courage to say, yes, I was hurt, but I also hurt others. Yes, I was wrong, but I have also been wrong. Yes, I've suffered, but I am more than my suffering. Let's now consider the social dimension. In today's culture, especially online, victimhood has become a kind of social capital. People are rewarded for their pain with attention, sympathy, and sometimes even status. But this creates a dangerous incentive structure. It encourages people to exaggerate or invent harm in order to gain validation. It also creates a hierarchy of suffering, where the person with the most dramatic story wins. This is not compassion. This is performance. And performance is the enemy of truth. Because when suffering becomes currency, honesty becomes optional. And slowly, we lose the ability to distinguish between genuine pain and strategic pain, between authentic cries for help and rehearsed narratives designed to manipulate. So what do we do with all of this? How do we operate in a world where victimhood is often rewarded and truth is often buried under layers of emotional theater? First, we must return to a fundamental principle of both philosophy and psychology: self-inquiry. We must regularly ask ourselves hard questions, not superficial ones like, am I being treated fairly? But deeper, humbling ones like, am I telling the whole story? Or what part of this situation am I avoiding responsibility for? Or what am I gaining by staying in this version of the story? These questions are not comfortable, but comfort is not the goal. Clarity is. And clarity only comes when we are willing to dismantle the illusions we've built around ourselves. Second, we must stop confusing empathy with indulgence. Empathy is the ability to feel with someone. Indulgence is the reflex to agree with someone just because they are in pain. And the truth is, pain does not automatically make someone right. Pain can be real and still be misdirected. Pain can be real and still be manipulative. You can feel for someone while also holding them accountable. You can love someone and still say, that's not the whole story. That is what true empathy looks like. It is not blind agreement. It is courageous presence. Third, we must practice a higher form of listening, not just to others, but to ourselves. When you find yourself replaying a painful story over and over, ask yourself, what do I want from this story? Do I want healing, or do I want power? Do I want closure, or do I want control? Do I want to move forward, or do I want to be right? These are the questions that reveal intention. And intention is everything. Because if your intention is to grow, you will eventually find the truth. But if your intention is to win, you will remain stuck in the narrative of being wronged, even when no one is left to blame. Let this next idea sink in. Playing the victim is easy. It requires no self-awareness, no accountability, no courage. But true liberation comes from stepping out of that role. From saying, I am not defined by what happened to me. I am not defined by who hurt me. I am defined by how I choose to respond. That is power. That is freedom. That is maturity. And that is the moment when your life begins to shift. Because the moment you stop trying to be the victim is the moment you start becoming the author of your own reality. So what would it look like to give up the victim role completely, not just in your words, but in your heart, in your energy, in your relationships? What would it mean to face your part in every conflict, to see your flaws without collapsing into shame, to own your story without rewriting it to make yourself look better? Could you do that? Would you still feel worthy? Or have you become so identified with being the one who was wronged that you no longer know who you are without that narrative? These are the questions that break illusions. These are the questions that take you from surface-level psychology to soul-level transformation. And if you're brave enough to sit with them, they will change you. Not instantly, not painlessly, but permanently. Because every time you give up the need to be the victim, you reclaim power over your life, not the power to control others, but the power to change yourself. And in doing so, you become a force of truth. You become someone who no longer needs to be rescued. You become someone who can finally fully live. As we close, remember this. Pretending to be the victim is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of disconnection from truth, from responsibility, from the deeper self. But that disconnect can be healed, not through blame, not through shame, but through relentless self-honesty and the willingness to grow beyond the story. You are not your pain. You are not your past. You are not the character in a play written by fear. You are the author. And the time has come to write a new chapter, one built not on suffering but on sovereignty. Speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, because the truth will not make you a victim. It will make you free.